Welcome back, you're watching SA Today. Here's a recap of our top stories today. For thousands of students across the country, there's been relief and tears of joy as the 2018 matrics celebrate the end of their high school careers. Government says that its investment in education is beginning to pay off.
He enjoyed that.
And in sport, Faf du Plessis regains form as the Proteas take control on day 2 of the second test against Pakistan in Cape Town. In fact, he scored more than 80 runs in his innings so far. Now, Women in Ministry Formation have released a statement extending gratitude to all groups and individuals who stood in solidarity against the remarks attributed to Reverend Vukile Mehana. Mehana has come under fire after a recording of a telephone conversation allegedly between Mehana and a church member, Raymond Sibanda, was leaked, in which he can be heard making derogatory comments about female church ministers. Now, the Women in Ministry Formation says that although the remarks have been brought by the Methodist Church South Africa under disrepute, it is comforting to know that there are groups and individuals who continue to stand for the principles of equality, transformation and human rights. The statement goes on to say that the Women in Ministry notes with much appreciation the South African Council of Churches' statement, which is a courageous act of ecumenical solidarity. Well, joining me now to talk a little bit more about this is Reverend Jenni Samdaan, who is the incoming coordinator for the Methodist Women in Ministry, and Reverend Sibeko, who is also a member of the Methodist Women in Ministry. Thanks very much indeed, ladies, for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so take me back to the formation of Women in Ministry in the Methodist Church. Why would you need to form such an organization? Let me start with you, Reverend.
It started in 1991, where we realized that we were sidelined in many ways. For example, you would be part of a ministry meeting with men, and when it comes to tea time, the woman would be asked to go and help with the tea. I mean, little things like that. Letters that were written to us were written to dear brethren, to our brothers. So it took us a long time to deal with those, which might seem like small things, but they were actually big things. And so in 1991, we had our first meeting where we decided that we're going to continue meeting for as long as we need to, until women are fully accepted in the Methodist ministry. And up until now, they are not.
So how far along this journey are you? I mean, it's 40 years later.
Yeah, it is 40 years later, and unfortunately the struggle still continues. Patriarchy is deep, and I think it runs in people's DNA, and we fight on that all the time, and sometimes we just get tired of fighting.
What is the patriarchy about? I mean, where does it come from? Is it biblical? Is it cultural? Where is it coming from?
I think it's both biblical and it's cultural and it's in society. Men rule. You know, men are seen as being stronger, as being more able. In many ways, men are seen to be the ones that are ruling. So as Dick says, it runs very deep. And I believe, and having spoken to a number of women ministers, this is a God moment. This is a moment for us as a church to step back and say, what are we going to do about it? Because we know it's there. Resolution after resolution after resolution has been passed. Every year we go to conference, we draw up a new resolution about women in leadership, and it comes to nothing. And I'm hoping that this time we will stop and say as a church, what are we going to do? We can't continue with having male bishops, male presiding bishops.
So there are no female bishops in the Methodist Church? No female bishops.
There has been one, Reverend Purity Malinga, and she did a 9-year term, and that was it.
All right, so help me understand. 1761, John Wesley, who founded the Methodist Church, gave a license to Sarah Crosby to preach, 1761.
Yeah.
Why has it taken only till 40 years ago for the shift to happen in South Africa, and even then for the struggle to continue? Why is, I don't understand.
I think as Jay is saying, it has taken a long time, and because of patriarchy and cultural issues and rereading of the Bible, you know, to suit one's understanding, unfortunately it's only 40 years.
Are there other Mehanas in the Methodist Church right now?
No, we do have Mehanas in the Methodist Church. I mean, I had an experience the time I was in PE Central, where as a superintendent, then I got vote of no confidence.
From
and and it was run by my colleagues. And the bishop was aware of it. As I'm saying, we do have lots and lots of them. And for me, it was like, wow, what is happening? So I always talk with Jenny, with Ivan and friends, and who have been very supportive. And, you know, there was vote of no confidence, which has never happened before. And as a superintendent in the Methodist Church, you take, it's annual appointment. But mine, it was ended after the conference, and was like, really? And it is patriarchy. And, you know, then you have to ask for mediations, then you have mediation at the end, and then the report is published, but you never get the report. You know, it's like someone with power sitting on the report, and you think patriarchy is alive.
All right, Reverend Jenni, from my experience of church, what I found is that the energy in getting things done and actions being taken, often running church stuff on the ground, it's women that have been at the forefront and usually the most attended. How is it that with so many women actually doing the work that we still have this patriarchal setup?
Yeah. Peter, we can go even further. When Dixon and I studied, we studied at FETSIM in Pietermaritzburg. There were about 100 men to about 5 or so women. And I did a little bit of homework, and I went to all the men and I said, how did you come to know Christ? How did you come to be a believer? The majority of them, I'd say 95%, was either their mother or their auntie or their grandmother. Fathers didn't feature. And so for me, I always found it strange that, they're coming to the church that is sustained by women, that is run by women. I mean, if women decided tomorrow that we are not going to give our tithes, and the church will close, because the church has been built on the women's backs. So why then do men still think that they can run?
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, perhaps some people might find this controversial, but have women aided and abetted this patriarchy?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. There are women who would rather be run or be led by men. I sat with a woman, she was the first doctor in South Africa. And this, I'm going back 30 years. And she told me of her struggles of being the first woman doctor and so on. And at the end she said to me, but I still will not accept you as my minister.
All right,
I don't believe in women ministers.
All right, so again I go back to, you know, the religion, and I wonder, I mean, the Catholic Church to this day does not allow women to be ministers. Is there a biblical basis for excluding women that people want to perpetuate in the modern day?
Yeah, I mean, the scripture, I always say, it's written by men, interpreted by men. And that's why when women comes in and we interpret the scripture from our own experience, that's why it's become so liberating. But I mean, I've got this favorite text, Jenny, from Timothy, where Paul, you know, tells women, you know, what to do in terms of the dress code, in terms of how women, you know, will be saved through, I'll be very out, will be saved through childbearing. And I wonder, what about women who don't have children? So it's very, and the story of the woman at the well, you know, that story actually has nothing to do with that woman seeing many men and even the fifth one who happens not to be hers. It has to do everything with religion. But because we read into the Bible, and for the Bible to make sense to us, we put our own experiences into it. But when you reread the Bible and you unpack and understand the hermeneutical issues of the Bible, then you understand actually the Bible is not patriarchal.
All right. You said earlier that this is a God moment, and I just wonder, and in your statement you say that you're encouraged that a statement is issued by head office. Would they have taken this action had this recording not leaked?
No. I don't think we would be at this point asking questions. I think this crisis has made us wake up and say, okay, what's happening deep down in all of us? What is happening? What is going on in my soul? What is going on in your soul? What is going on in your soul? Let's throw it open. The wound has now been opened. Let's deal with the wound.
Is there resistance from some men who might think in the same way as Reverend Mehana, who is saying, we hear you, we acknowledge that you may feel this way, but we just can't have women rising? Is this what's happening? Because it seems to me, I mean, if you're surprised that head office has taken this long, that means there are men sitting in office right now who are purposefully holding you back.
Yes.
No, absolutely.
But why?
Well, I mean, we had, I mean, as Jenny said, alluded to the fact that there have been so many resolutions about women in leadership positions. You know, 2017, we had a conference where we actually talk about women to be appointed as leaders. And it just did not happen. And we talked, we've got a usage, 40-40-20
but when you
in
ask,
leadership.
I mean, there's the head person of the Methodist Church in South Africa. When you ask this person, why aren't we doing this? What is the response you get?
I asked the presiding bishop. I sat down, there were 4 of us women. I asked him, presiding bishop, do I not have the skills and the ability to be a bishop? And he said to me, no, Jenny, you've proved yourself over and over and over and over. But if people aren't voting for you, then you must just accept it.
Who does the voting?
The people, the ministers, lay people. So we go to synods where the voting takes place.
And this is men and women,
men and
ordinary folks. So it's women that are actually keeping you out then, partly.
Women and men.
Partly.
Women and men. We do have women.
Because you're 51% of the population. You should be winning these votes all the time, right?
Yes.
But they've internalized patriarchy. You know, once you have internalized that, I have realized it's difficult to move out of that circle.
All right, I'm going to ask you as well, because I think both black and white have cultural dimensions as well. And some people struggle with balancing traditional African traditions and the church. Is this partly to blame, do you think? I mean, we heard Reverend Mehana starting by saying, I'm a Mthembu man, and then he brought it to religion. Is there this conflict that's contributing to this?
Yeah, I truly think it is. I mean, where I have been as a minister and where I've visited, for instance, just one example of people receiving Holy Communion. You know, people will be expected to cover their heads, you know, to put something on in terms of respect. And it is a cultural issue for me. It's like people bringing their culture in the church. And yet, the Methodist Church, we're talking about healing and transformation. So for me, it has always been, no. This is church, it's not family, you know. Like people go to the extent of taking a toilet paper on someone's head in order for that person to have Holy Communion. So me, I always remove it, you know. So I think it takes time for someone to act against, you know, the forces of culture.
All right, so I'll refer once again to John Wesley, 1761. Is what's happening in South Africa the same across the world, that the women's struggle continues in the Methodist Church?
I think so. I was part of a a large meeting of all the Methodist universities throughout Africa. And I was asked to introduce our presiding bishop. And the chairperson of that large body, and these are professors and doctors from all over Africa, the chairperson came to the person that was organizing the conference and said, how could you let that woman introduce the presiding bishop?
Wow. Wow.
And he said, but you know, we work as a team, and it was Jenny's turn, and so Jenny introduced the presiding bishop, and he then said, the guy from Africa, North Africa, we are far behind. We've got a long way to go. So I think throughout Africa we have a long way to go. I think in America the Methodist churches there are a little bit more open, there are more bishops. I think in England as well there are more women bishops. But in our country it seems a long way off.
All right, so we're running out of time, but perhaps finally, what should happen to the likes of Reverend Mehana? Should he be defrocked as an example to others? And what should happen to people that are standing in the way of women progressing in the church? Let's start with you.
Yeah, I think for me something needs to happen, because I mean it has to do with the image of God and stuff that he said. For me, I believe something needs to happen. The presiding bishop referred to the church's processes and all that. For me, I believe the processes can take place, but I would really like to see this happening so that other men will realize we cannot do this or say things of that nature to women. So, but he has retired already, so it's not about
him having an office, but
not having an office,
but the fact that title taken away from him.
For me, it's retired, but he's still a Methodist minister. He can still be used. He can, with all his skills, he can do so much. But for me, if that can be stopped, that can be a good lesson to other men.
What does the God moment mean for you?
The God moment means that God is intervening now, and the church needs to wake up and ask, what is God's plan for the Methodist Church? Not what is men's plan, what are the Zulus' plan, the Xhosa's plan, the Pedis' plan, because I mean we are one. And if we don't see each other as one, then we're going nowhere.
All right, so ladies, thank you very much for joining us. Reverend Jenni Samdaan and Reverend Sibeko, thanks so much indeed for your insights and your thoughts. Thank you,
Peter.